That's what I did today. I sat around and waited for the phone to ring, and luckily I got to be comfortably zoned. I'm the Zigzag Man. We're in Alameda, California, and I got a great guest. He's from northern New Jersey, actually from Virginia, and former Major League player, author, producer of movies, documentaries, Renaissance man, Mr. Billy Sample. How are you, sir?
Ralph, thanks, and thanks for the intro. That's very nice. Renaissance man. I like that.
You are.
I'm going to run with that one for a while.
You can keep that moniker because you fill the bill, man. You've done it all.
Well, actually, I was most versatile in my high school senior class.
3 sports.
For whatever that's worth, yes. Now I've got to go ahead and prove it now.
3 sports. You won the football. You beat Dwayne Board's team you were a split end.
That's right. I guess that plays well out there, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes,
Dwayne Board, for those, I don't talk football much, but I was lucky enough to live out in San Francisco in the 80s when Bill Walsh, the genius, put together 3 Super Bowls, and one of the defensive ends on all 3 Super Bowls was a guy that you played against, and you called Pee-wee.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were the only one to call the guy 6'4" Pee-wee, because you're 5'9" and 175.
Well, I don't think we were on speaking terms at that point. We were about 15 or 16 years of age. In fact, I think he started as a freshman, and I was a junior, so I'm a couple of years older than Pee-wee. I think he's Pee-wee because he's the youngest of a group of siblings who are all 6-something. So maybe he outgrew the Pee-wee size, but he was Pee-wee back then. Dwayne. He was
Pee-wee back then. And there was another set of brothers that played when you were growing up that you either played with or against. The Bibbies, Jim Bibby, the pitcher, Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken.
Most of it Pittsburgh, yeah. I was teammates with him in Texas. His second stint in Texas. I think he threw a no-hitter somewhere, and I want to say it was in Texas, but it was his first stint there, or maybe it was with St. Louis. But I played with him in Texas in the early 80s, and he's from Lynchburg, Virginia, which is about an hour due west of where I grew up in Salem, Virginia, in the southwestern part of the state. And Henry Bibby, who was actually shorter than Jim Bibby. I think Henry was about 6'2". Big Jim was about 6'5". And
Henry, the point guard for the Knicks.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And a damn good one, too, and a very deep team that I think he was with them the second championship, if I'm not mistaken, but that's all off the top of my head. And what got me is you mentioned that there was another brother that you thought was the best of the 3, or had the most talent, or couldn't understand why he wasn't drafted.
Oh, that was Al Holland, or Alfred.
Al Holland, okay.
Yeah. Al was the fireman of the year with the Phillies in 1983, the year that they lost to the Orioles in the World Series. And he could throw. I'm telling you, Ralph, he got it up there in a hurry. And I faced him in American Legion ball. I don't think I saw anybody to throw any harder than he did. In fact, even after going through the major leagues and the minor leagues, he's still in my top 2 or 3 as far as velocity, but he wasn't drafted out of high school or college. I think he went to North Carolina A&T and didn't get drafted out of there either, which is just mind-boggling to me. But
it is. The whole draft is almost a crapshoot. You didn't get drafted till the 10th round, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Ralph, thank you, but I didn't get drafted until the 28th round out of high school. In fact, it's a lot different back then than it is today when you have it on MLB.com or the MLB Network. You sit around for days and you wait to hear if you were drafted. And I thought I was going to get drafted somewhere in the teens because some of the scouts had told me I was getting drafted somewhere in the teens. So when I was drafted in the 28th round, the late Joe Branzell, what a great scout and a great man he was. He said, well, Bill, this is Joe Branzell of the Texas Rangers. Back in those days, there were 24 teams. And he could hear my disappointment. You've been drafted in the 28th round. And he could hear my disappointment. And he said, well, Bill, 23 other teams passed over you 27 times, as if to say, don't blame us for drafting you. I'm sure he had used that line more than once, but it was it was funny, and I really.
And then he had to negotiate a contract with you, and that was a pretty good starting point from the Rangers' standpoint. Let's start it off this way: you're right. 600 guys got chosen before you. But we think you can make it. It was the year that
David Clyde was drafted in the first round, the first pick actually in the draft.
Whoa. And he went right to, they ruined his career in a hurry.
Yeah, he wanted that. Well, they wanted a marketing person for Arlington because the club had come from D.C. just a couple of years ago, and they wanted to sell out the place, in which they did. And he had a good major league fastball and a curveball, but it was tough. And I think Billy Martin at the time didn't want him up there that early, but the front office wanted him up there for the crowds. And by the time I was coming up through the minors and through instructional ball, David was on his way down. And it's a shame in a way. I don't know how they could have done it any differently outside of going through the minor leagues. But he's not the only one. There have been some players who have gone straight from amateur ball to the big leagues. Dave Winfield did it. Bob Horner did it. John Olerud did it. So it can be done, but it was tough for him during that time. And then he had an arm injury as well, which really shelved his career, which was very promising. Yeah.
I want to talk about Billy Martin a little bit. It was always, in the back of my head, I'm going to have Billy Sample, talking to Billy Sample. He played for Billy Martin. You didn't really play for him at Texas, and not until the Yankees, real close to the end of your career, did you play for Billy Martin, and he wasn't the manager the whole year. Yogi was the manager the whole year.
Yogi was the manager for the last 16 days of his career, last 16 games in 1985, and then Yogi was let go, and then Billy came on for, I believe, his third tenure with the Yankees. And I didn't know a lot about this, and I don't know if you know anything about this, Ralph, but I've made 3 books with anecdotes about Billy Martin. None of it that I knew at the time that it was going on. I'm in Goose Gossage's book, I'm in Reggie Jackson's book, and I'm in Roger Kahn's book, because evidently he went up to Gossage somewhere in spring training and told him to hit me in the head and name me by name. I thought when Goose told me years later and after I was playing under Martin about this particular situation, because I didn't know what was going on, but he asked me if I had any trouble with Billy, and I said, well, he didn't seem to be thrilled with me, but get in line. And but I didn't have any problem with him. And then he told me the story that Martin had told him to hit me in the head. And Goose, it's not like Goose wouldn't hit you now, but Goose didn't feel like he had a reason to hit somebody, especially in the head, unless he had, he's not going to fight anybody else's battles like that. And I'm not even sure why Martin said that. But he lived in Arlington. I lived in Arlington. Maybe we knew the same people. I don't know. I never bothered to try to figure it out, and I didn't know about
Billy
it.
Billy was figuring out Billy has been a full-time job for a lot of people for a lot of years.
Yeah, and maybe we had the same nickname. Who knows? I'm not
sure. Right. Maybe he didn't like that.
Yeah.
Couldn't have anything to do with pigmentation or anything, far be it from...
People have alluded to that, Ralph, but he loved Ricky Henderson, so and he didn't like Larry Gore, who was white. So it's not. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I just didn't have the temperament that he liked, or I never bothered to try to figure it out, because when you sit there and try to figure out somebody else's psyche, it just gives them, to me, too much power. So I never bothered to figure it out. I told Billy, the only thing I told him at the time was that I'll be ready to play whenever you want me to play, and that's pretty much the way I played anyway that year, because I had been traded from Texas to the Yankees that year in spring training, and I knew I wasn't going to play as much as I had played the previous 2 seasons, because the Yankees had Ricky Henderson in his first year, his first stint with the Yankees. Dave Winfield was out there, and Ken Griffey Sr., and they were getting Ken Griffey Sr. was getting the majority of the other playing time of the outfielder, and so I'm doing whatever I can and just try to be ready to play whenever my number was called.
What was Winfield like?
I think Dave's a very erudite person. He has interest in a number of areas. I think he owned art galleries. He has traveled all over the world. I spoke to Big Dave not too long ago about a situation in Fairbanks, Alaska, because he had played there for the Gold Panthers, and I'd gone up for about 5 weeks this year. It was my first real trip to the Last Frontier, and worked out with some of the kids there years ago. It was kind of cathartic for me because I played in a similar collegiate summer league, the Shenandoah Valley League in Virginia, and I felt that it really helped me as far as my ascension through the minor leagues and the major leagues. So it was nice to get back and talk to some of the youngsters, and I don't know how they teach them to bunt nowadays, Ralph, because you have to have some perpendicular to the bat in order to make it go down. I don't have to teach these kids physics. But
right.
Outside of that, it was really a nice it was a nice 5 weeks for me to experience that. And I told some of the kids that from my first year in the Valley League playing collegiate summer ball that 4 players went to the major leagues. So I would tell these kids, well, somebody's going to go from here. And as I'm off to tell my kids, it might as well be you. Somebody's going to make it. It might as well be you.
Right.
So I'll look to see if somebody from that team in Fairbanks, which was, we had trouble hitting. I think team batting average was 220, and if that wasn't bad enough, the team led the league in hitting in the double play. So what few base runners we had were raced all the time. But somebody's going to make it, and it was a good format for people to continue to work on their craft.
Beautiful. Billy, of all the experiences you had coming up, was there ever a time when you said, I really doubt myself? I mean, because I know just to have accumulated all the heroics you did coming up, high school, star this, 3 sports, you had positive outlook, or you wouldn't have gotten to that point. But was there ever a time coming up when you said, wow, I'm playing with a lot of guys who were top of the heap in high school and college and this, that, and the other thing? Was there a pause there for you, and how'd you get over it?
Well, Ralph, again, alluding to the Shenandoah Valley League, when I realized I could play in that league, which had some of the best players along the Eastern Seaboard, and I was teammates with Gene Richards, who played with the Padres. In fact, he had the rookie record in the National League for stolen bases before Tim Raines came along to break it, and Jim Pankovitz and Dave Tobick, who later became a teammate in Texas, pitched most of his career with the Tigers. So I could measure up in that league. Tom Brookins was in that league. He was on the Tigers' '84 World
Tigers
Championship
third
team.
baseman, absolutely.
Yeah. He could fly when he was younger, Ralph.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness, could he fly.
And Gene Richards
Jenny
was
Walling
a hitting
was
machine.
Oh, yeah.
Richards was a hitting machine.
Oh, yeah, a little short stroke, really choked up a lot.
Absolutely, right.
Oh, my goodness, could he fly, too.
And a wonderful instructor. I don't know, we didn't talk about this. I was the Topps representative on the West Coast for a lot of years in the 80s and the 90s.
Oh, my goodness.
I worked for Cy Berger.
You worked with Cy, yeah. Oh, Cy just passed away, about a couple of years ago?
Yeah, a couple of years ago. He was just, a great guy, one of those guys that nobody in the 13 years that I did the job ever had a bad word to say about Cy.
Oh, yeah, he was a sweetheart, yeah.
He was a sweetheart. But I got to meet Richards. He was coaching in Palm Springs, and I got to meet him. He's a tremendous guy as well, just very good with the kids.
Yeah, and he was like that, had the same temperament way back when. He was just really an easygoing, a lot of nice people in baseball, as you know, Ralph.
Yeah.
And he certainly was one of those, and I had the opportunity to work along with him. I tell you, I was in left field, and he in center, and there wasn't a lot going on in left center as far as line drives getting through, because he had
really a lot of range.
My goodness. And a big man, and a big, strong, like a wide receiver or a tight end in football kind of size to me when he was playing, and I wasn't used to guys being that big and being that fast, but and in fact, South Carolina State at that time had dropped its baseball program and had the number 1 and 2 picks in the draft with Gene and Willie Aikens. So that's that's quite a draft. Willie Mays Aikens.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
great name.
I was at a function with Willie Mays not too long ago.
Not like Willie Mays Hayes, but
not like Wesley Snipes. Yeah.
Right. Which, by the way, if you want to talk baseball movies for a second, was that a great baseball movie or what? On how many different levels? That was a fun-ass movie.
That was really fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine's a little bit. Mine has humor like that, but it's a little darker, I think, for the most part. But it's along those lines. It's a clubhouse. Baseball clubhouse, a lot of interaction. In fact, most of the movie was shot in the clubhouse. We shot it at the Rays A Club in Fishkill, New York, for the most part. But a lot of what goes on behind the scenes, fly on the wall kind of feeling, and I would imagine not a lot of it you've seen. Anyone has seen, really, because it comes from my warped mind. So.
Well, your warped mind is tremendous. You're articulate, and you just got a glow about you that you're looking at it in the right way. It's one trip around the track. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. Leave a mark. Be positive, and leave something that people will remember you by. And,
that was sort of the way that a lot of indie movies are made, and I guess I feel good in a way because I even told Jim Bouton and his wife that there's a Ball 4 reference in the movie. But outside of Bouton and Ron Shelton, you don't have many baseball players who have made baseball-based movies, and I feel pretty good to be in that category.
Let me interject something. Bouton was such a big part. I'm a New Yorker and all this, but that book was such a big part of my looking at ball, and Bouton, so important, not just that book, other books that he wrote. Jim lost his daughter.
I remember, outside of Boston.
Not
somewhere.
Long ago, and I used to buy those cards as business cards from his company, those personalized baseball cards that I had, and he was very important. And I wanted to, all these years, I wanted to say, hey, when a father loses a child or a mother loses it, nothing's worse, nothing's more tragic. I just, if he ever gets to hear this, I hope he'll accept my condolences, because that sucks. Let me tell you.
I can imagine. Oh.
Yeah, you can't imagine. Right, to that point. So
I got a compliment out of as we shift gears just a little bit. I got a compliment out of Jim's association with baseball from the person who rated the movie, who called me to tell me that the rating was, thank goodness, it was a strong R, not an NC-17, because he was a baseball person. He knew a lot about baseball from the 50s. That was his era of baseball knowledge, and he said that he felt that after reviewing Reunion 108 that it was along the lines of Ball 4 as far as a seminal baseball movie. I guess where Ball 4. And that was right. Wow. That's the biggest compliment. People can go on and rate it however they want to rate it on IMDb. Rate it high, please. But to get that compliment from the rater was really, because I figure he's going to get all the sports movies or most of the baseball movies anyway. For him to say that really meant a lot to me. And I really appreciate it.
I'm just thinking my favorite line from Ball 4 is when the players are coming off out of the terminal to meet the wives, and
I know where you're going.
Look, you know exactly where I'm going. Look horny, here come the wives.
Yeah, act horny. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, act horny.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of that in there too. Yeah, we've got that. Right. Yeah, we took that and went a step or two in each direction.
Okay. Well, it's 30 years later, for crying out loud. We need to progress a little bit about what, everybody's human.
We paid homage to Ball 4 though, but we were, okay. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that's one of those that you just when you've been in the game as you and I have, the kind of backstory that goes on. So
well, you've been in the game. I've been on the outskirts of the game. And with that in mind, I have to ask you two questions. One of it is, you were a darn good Major League ball player for like a lot of years. One year, 1985, your numbers come up appreciably. you had a wonderful year. You stole 44 bases, this, that, and the other thing. Was it just putting it all together? Was it opportunity? You had your most at-bats that year.
Yeah, it finally all came together, Ralph. That was 1983, and it finally all came together for me. No, it came all together for me. We had a new manager in Doug Rader, who his philosophy was more of the National League philosophy, where he played his career, and we were a little more aggressive, and that helped. I had Wayne Tollison as a running mate, and that helped. Wayne stole 33 bases that year, so we could compare notes, and it was fun to have somebody at the top of the order. Although in that particular season, I batted in all 9 spots of the American League order, which I'm not sure if anybody's done that. Seems like it'd be easy for somebody to do, but I'm not sure if anyone has done that. But for the most part, I was at the top of the order, or at least at the bottom, and Tollison and I were somewhere close, so we could maximize the speed game a little bit more. And I stole 44 out of 52 attempts, and for a team that was last in runs scored and next to last in hitting. So I wasn't running up 3 a lot of the times. It was down by 1 in the 8th sometimes when you had to steal bases. But it was a good year. It was fun to have it all come to fruition. Although 2 years earlier in 1981, I got off to a tremendous start. I was among the league leaders in doubles. And then in Arlington Stadium, as it was in Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, maybe because they were minor league stadiums, the light stanchions were so low that it seemed like everything that was hit as a line drive went through the lights. And this particular night against Kansas City, I think it was UL Washington that was batting, and he hit the line drive off Rick Honeycutt, and I had to wait for the line drive to come out of the lights, which most of the time it does. But every once in a while it doesn't, and the 2 times it didn't, it cost us a game for me because I lost in the lights and couldn't find it. And but by the time
did you ever lose his toothpick? Did you ever lose the toothpick in the light?
That's a good one. Or did ever a pitcher that threw a fastball up and in on him, it just
right.
split the toothpick in half?
And does it count as a hit batsman? If you hit the toothpick, does it count as a hit batsman?
Very good. I don't know if the young audience would know what we're talking about, but UL
doesn't matter. He always carried.
He always had a toothpick in his mouth. And,
absolutely, but they'll find out eventually. They'll find, and if they want to do their history, if they care at all, this will be fun for them because going back is fun. It always is.
Yeah, but I broke my wrist. And I made the catch and broke my wrist, and I didn't realize I had broken it at the time. I knew it hurt, and I stayed in the game. And I was batting the next half inning. I walked to the plate, and all of a sudden it dawns on me, Ralph, I can't swing. What am I going to do now? And and luckily for me, I got hit. I didn't have to swing at all. I figured I had one swing to make this at bat before I had to go and have X-rays, and then they.
And only a man who's with a broken wrist who gets hit by a major league ball can say, "Luckily, I got hit."
Yeah, I was thrilled.
Right? Oh, yeah, I'll bet you were just absolutely elated.
Yeah, so I went on the DL.
Was that a purpose pitch? Was that a purpose pitch too?
Well, I don't know if it was or not, but
I know. Okay.
Yeah, you could hit hit me 0-2 and I'm happy. If I'm behind the count and I get hit, thank you.
I can't blame you because those numbers come down when it's 0-2 quite a bit. Let me your last answer brought up another question. So before I get to your Yankee year, I want to ask you whether or not you think, because you played in Atlanta the 1 year that you played in the National League, whether or not you think the differences in leagues, the strike zone, this, that, and the other thing, is it overrated, or is there really a semblance of truth to the idea that there's a distinct difference?
I thought back then there was. I think because a couple of reasons. One, because of the DH in the American League, one run doesn't mean as much as it does in the National League because you have an extra legitimate hitter who can eclipse deficits earlier and easier in the American League. In the National League, you have to challenge more because you can't afford to put that run on as much because you're going to have to pinch it for the pitcher. You're going to make a lot of changes from time to time. So I would see watching National League games, and I was more of a National League brand of ball. My goodness, where was that league most of my career? Because they do challenge you more. They threw fastballs more. 3-1, here, try to hit it. If you can hit it out dead center, more power to you. But they'll throw you a little fastball, a little sink, middle of the plate away. They'll try to get it, and because they can't afford to put you on. One run means more to you, so they have to challenge you a little more. In the American League, they think nothing about throwing you a 3-2 breaking ball back then, and they did it quite often. I was telling this story not too long ago that Doug Flynn, who played in the National League most of his career, won a Gold Glove.
Cincinnati was traded. I think he was traded for Tom Seaver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he was in that trade. Yeah. Somebody threw Doug, who was batting ninth in the order, in the American League order, 3-1 breaking ball, and I just laughed because I'm sure he had never seen a 3-1 breaking ball before in his life.
Right.
I said, yeah, welcome to the American League. And for some talented National League hitters coming to the American League for the first time, it's really an adjustment. I remember when Ted Simmons came over from St. Louis, a 297 hitter in the National League, came over from St. Louis to Milwaukee. His first season, he batted .215 as a Brewer. And I'm not sure it was hard for .215. He really scuffled because you just don't get that challenge here. We're gonna throw it at you hard and see if you can hit it. By the same token, I think because they use their fastballs more in the National League, they tend to be a little harder. But back then, the American League was a breaking ball league. They would throw you a fastball, try to chase you out of the strike zone with it, but they wanted to get you out primarily with the breaking ball. We had Larry Parrish, who was traded in the Al Oliver deal with Dave Hostetler. He came to the Rangers, and LP had that big swing, big third baseman, big swing.
Right.
And he was looking for a 3-1 fastball. He looked for about 3 months for a 3-1 fastball. He never got it. He had that big swing, and he was flailing at some sliders. But he figured it out, as did Ted Simmons figured it out, because he ended up hitting 300 in the American League. Yeah.
Were you ever asked to go into coaching? Did you have that as an aspiration when you played, and did you make any connects that might have led you to
Ralph,
coaching?
I appreciate the game. I love its history. I admire the skill and talent that it takes to play it, but I was never really dirt under the fingernails crazy about it that way, where I was going to try to instruct, outside of doing it this summer, instruct kids on how to do something and may get an audience or not. So, but I did what I could do. I enjoy writing, so I was a writer for Baseball Weekly at its inception way back in the early 1990s. I broadcasted for a number of teams. So I think, as I try to enhance people's appreciation of the game, that was the avenue that was best for me.
The media is best. What do you like about the media, and what don't you like?
I like to write, as I said, so I enjoy that part of it because I think I can bring a certain insight that maybe other people don't have and subsequently can appreciate. Sometimes, we don't have enough time to talk about what I don't like about the media.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Well, let's start with the top three. The top three.
No,
seriously.
I don't. Well, let me give you an example. I won't go into to each little individual. In fact, that's an area that we touch on in the movie as well. Reunion 108. We have a give and take between the players and the writers, sports writers in this case, or a radio writer, a radio media person, and a sports writer. That sort of gives you a sense of some of the things that I had experienced with the media. But there was one situation when I was in Texas in the early 1980s. Rusty Staub, who had come over from Detroit, and I were essentially sharing left field. And there was a writer that wasn't a regular beat writer that came, and he asked me a number of questions. It's like a psychological test where they ask you 25 different ways of one question, maybe not 25, but let's say they ask you 5 different ways. They'll ask you in question 10, they'll ask you in question 23, question 79, question...
Right. just reword it a little bit.
This word, yeah, and that's essentially what he was doing, and I kind of knew what he was getting at. He was trying to look for some kind of animosity between Rusty and me, and my goodness, there was none there. In fact, in all the situations where I've been in a platoon situation, some of the people I've respected the most have been the people in the platoon with me, and I can run through a number of names from Johnny Grubb to Jim Norris to Terry Harper, even though we're both right-handed hitters, where you're sharing playing time, and you kind of understand the situation. Nobody's getting mad at anybody else. Lee Mazzilli, when he came over to Texas at some point, and so I answered it a certain way, and I answered it, boom, boom. I checked them off at each place, and I'm guessing Rusty did the same, checked them off at each place. He was looking for something, and I'm guessing that the editor sent that particular writer out to stir up some stuff. And I've been around writers enough to know that sometimes they're looking for stuff. And there was none there. So my thinking is if there's nothing there and you can't get quotes to back it, you can sense it all you want to. But unless you get quotes to back it, you really can't say what this particular writer ended up saying, which was not even a misquote, not even a misparaphrase, but it was just an out-and-out lie. So Rusty ended up calling the editor to complain. The editor doesn't pick up the phone, but to leave a message. But then if the editor is sending the sports writer out to stir up some stuff or to find some stuff, then the editor could care less because that was the editor. That's what the editor wanted to do. So that kind of stuff kind of just bothers me. And there are a number of other things, but but for the most part, I've had good relationships with the media. One of my best buddies, Paul Hagen, who I knew from way back in my Texas days and worked many years with the Phillies. He and I are probably as close as anybody I've had in the media. And Ed Randall, who I've known for a number of years, since my minor league days, actually. And a lot of the current broadcasters in the major leagues, like Jerry Howarth with the Blue Jays, I came up with in the minor leagues. A lot of the guys up there now were in AAA when I was in AAA in the Pacific Coast League. So
is he related? There was Howarth that played with the Giants. Was that Jerry's brother or a relative?
I think I would have heard it if it was, but I
maybe not.
Heard.
But it's an unusual name, and I remember Howarth coming up with the Giants. Tell me about your Yankee days. Tell me what it's like to be in New York. And before you do that, tell me if this might sound familiar. Now batting for the Yankees, number 12, Billy Sample, number 12.
Very good, very good.
How did that feel to be introduced by that guy?
Well, I tell you what, and when I was with the Yankees, I was actually number 11, but that's nice. That's a very good Bob Shepard, Ralph.
Bob Shepard, and number 11, they gave you Hector Lopez's number.
Hector, that's right. I got to meet Hector Lopez that year, too. And
Did you really?
I'm wearing your number.
Hector Lopez is a very underrated ball player with the Yankees in the 50s. He really was They gave him a silly nickname. He booted a few balls, and they gave him a nickname, Hector What a Pair of Hands Lopez. New York press was tough. Couldn't have been that tough on you.
Well, I didn't find it any tougher.
You were a
than
grizzled veteran by then.
Well, yes, but I didn't find it any tougher than it was the Texas writers. I just think there were more of them. So what you may think is a throwaway line, somebody will pick it up and use it. I think that's probably the difference I found in a major media market like New York and one that wasn't as major back then as Texas was. I think since Bobby Valentine came there and Tom Grieve as a general manager and then Nolan Ryan coming as a player, that the market itself really was enhanced because of the work of those three. But back when I played, we were just something to do when the Cowboys weren't playing. And but yes,
somehow the world has turned into, sadly enough, the football craze is nuts at this point. But that's another story.
I grew up playing football, so it was, and my oldest son actually, Ian, caught 10 of Colt Brennan's NCAA record 58 touchdown passes in 2006 for the University of Hawaii. Not that I'm a brown dad or anything, but yeah.
No, not at all. Doesn't sound like it. You seem far removed.
No, I know. And he wasn't even the best athlete in the family. His sister, his older sister, she threw the javelin at the University of Rhode Island. She's tough. She's
Whoa.
Yeah.
So I'll give you. You mentioned the University of Rhode Island. I grew up with a kid in the 10th grade at the Y. His name was Art Stevenson, and Art Stevenson holds the rebound record at Rhode Island and was the last cut by the Boston Celtics in their good years, like not their great years, but as late as 65. And he passed away very young. He was like 40 years old. And Artie was a great guy. At 10 years old, he was just... it was a privilege. He was a great player. At 10 years old, he was playing like a high school kid, and so there you go. That's a good school with good memories.
Well, I tell you what, and as we're taping, did you hear who passed away? Another tremendous
Moses Malone. Am I correct?
Yes.
Is that who you're thinking of? Oh,
yes.
And Darryl Dawkins passed away very recently.
Oh, I know.
Chocolate Thunder. We're losing people younger than me, and
no, I know. I'm thinking that. I'm going, oh my goodness, this is not good.
Yeah, this is not good at all. And what can I tell you?
But you asked about my Yankee year, and
your Yankee year.
I was traded in. Oh, yeah, it was Yogi's last 16 games as manager of the Yanks, and as you know, Yogi stayed away for a long period of time before truce was fostered by Susan Wallman at Yogi's museum in Little Ferry, New Jersey, between he and George Steinbrenner. I was traded in spring training, actually. The Rangers had opened camp, and then the Yankees were opening the following day, and I was traded after the Rangers had opened camp. And back in those days, the Rangers trained in Pompano Beach, Florida, and the Yankees in Fort Lauderdale, and they were side-by-side cities. So I didn't have to go very far, and so I go to Fort Lauderdale and have my sort of impromptu press conference, and go to my locker, and then George Steinbrenner comes over and invites me and welcomes me to the club, which I thought was really nice because I wasn't a big star. And so I must have said something in my impromptu press conference that sounded good, and then George came over, and I appreciated that. That was a nice move, I thought.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Were you there when Marty Appel was there?
No, but I know Marty, and but Marty.
He's been a guest on my show a number of times, and
oh yes. How many books does Marty have out now?
As has Fritz Peterson, who. Former Yankee, who's writing a book and always has a smile on his face as well.
Doesn't he? Oh, geez.
Fritz is something else, as are you, young man. And I've had fun. I hope you'll come back from time to time and check in.
Oh, Ralph, anytime. Geez, anytime. This has been a lot of fun. We're just sitting back and talking baseball and talking sports and whatever else there is. And
talking life a little bit.
Great. Talking life, yes.
Yeah, it's nice. Nice catching up with you. I had a good time, and that's all it's about. When you think about it, it's just have fun, and everything will take care of itself.
I tell you, Skip Carey told me one time, if I may, Skip Carey, the late Skip Carey now, it seems like everybody I know, Skip said about broadcasting a baseball game, he says, like a couple of guys having a drink at the bar. You're just sitting around and just talking and discussing and talking about what you see. And I thought that was a nice way to
absolutely
put what we do as far as, in that case, broadcasters. But just sitting around and talking about the game is something that we can do forever.
Beautiful. Beautiful. This has been tremendous. I'm going to end the episode the way I do all of them, for good, bad, or indifferent. I'm going to implore you and the Audii to keep your dreams wet, keep your humor dry, keep your kids out of military recruiting offices, and off the laps of clerics that wear dresses, just to be on the safe side. I mean,
I love that.
And I'm just throwing it out there. It isn't for everybody. It's advice. Some people are going to go, you know what? I'm going to go, that guy's full of crap. I'm going to take my junior down. He's going to be a corporal. I have. And some people will go down for catechism. It's okay. You could leave your kid. You could do any damn thing you want, but you heard it from me. You heard warning. You don't have to listen. It doesn't matter.
Ralph, you and I can hang. That's all I can say.
All right. Hey, Billy,
have a lot of fun.
That's tremendous. I'm glad. And we'll catch you next time. As baseball says, catch you down the road. Am I right?
All right. Good deal, Ralph. All right.
Good deal, Billy. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.